So hello, and yes, my name is Michael Smith, the National Consumer Education Manager of Janome Canada, and welcome for another Sew for Home Janome Canada Live. And yes, we're going to share some, beautiful sewing goodies with you, and the sneak peek of our new hobby embroidery patch today, patch number 2. So we've got lots to discuss, and again, we can't do any of it without our fabulous Liz Johnson from Sew for Home. So let's bring her in here. There we go.
There
Yay!
we go.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. And, Michael and I were talking just as we were making sure we get our cameras set up and all that kind of good stuff. And it is, as probably everybody out there knows, it is National Sewing Month, but we thought it should be International Sewing Month. So that's why I thought it would be fun to do a little something about Sashiko style stitching, which, like Michael said, you can do as a straight stitch or you can do it as a machine embroidery. And we keep saying Sashiko style because true Sashiko, the folk art of Sashiko, is an actual Japanese hand stitching technique. And so if you go back and kind of take a look at where this technique evolved, it comes from the Edo, the Edo period in Japan. And of course, because our wonderful Janome is a Japanese company.
How appropriate.
How appropriate. And they were definitely one of the first manufacturers to give us this style of stitching within their machines. And so I don't know about everybody's out there, but I think I can pretty confidently say they probably have a better selection, even if any other people might have.
I agree. And on that CM7, some of the machines, again with the machine embroidery,
it's
Sashiko,
beautiful.
There's pages of it in the CM17. So many Sashiko designs. It's incredible, but they are built into some machines, like the 550E, for example, has a bunch of Sashiko designs.
And when we started to play around with this, it was about a year ago. And so we were using the Skyline S9 and the 15,000. Both of those also have Sashiko style machine embroidery. So if you look at the actual translation, Sashiko means little stabs. And so we feel like that is because basically at the core of it, it's a simple running stitch. And so it was developed in the rural parts of Japan, especially like the Japanese fishing villages, very poor part of the country, a very poor part of the history. And people were literally saving any scrap of fabric that they could. And they found that by layering the fabric together and then doing this running stitch and kind of overlapping and interlocking it, it made a very secure, a very dense and warm new layer of fabric that they could make clothing from, that they could make blankets from. So nothing would go to waste. And so that's why you always see at the heart of it is that simple running stitch. There's also, we used, and I'll bring out my samples here. We used some fun different colors of linen, but the classic Sashiko is indigo, is that dark blue with beautiful, the white thread. And again, it's because at that time in history, indigo was the cheapest kind of fabric that you could find. And as people were perfecting this technique, they saw that they could use a white thread against this dark blue, this indigo, and it would be beautiful. And so people started coming up with their own style, with their own look, and the designs. One of the key components of the design, if you look at the traditional Sashiko, is there's a lot of negative space. There's a lot of space in between all the stitching. It's not like you would see in a classic machine embroidery where the stitching can be very, very close together. This is much more loose. You can see the color behind it. And in the research that we did, they say that really these designs, these classic Sashiko designs, are meant to be simplified versions of things that occur in nature. So water or flowers or birds or butterflies, that type of thing. Some of them were even said to have kind of a talisman effect. So whatever design you had on your clothing was going to protect you as the wearer. So it's really, it's a beautiful history. It's a beautiful kind of folk art style. And it was just great to be able to see, how could I do this on my machine? Because I don't know if I have the patience.
Oh, I agree. That's what I love, that we can take these traditional hand styles, but now we can do them in our fabulous Janome machine and save a whole ton of time. I love that.
And so I brought both, and for the folks out there that are familiar with Sew for Home, both of these projects that I'm going to share with you today, they're still available on Sew for Home.
Oh, sweet.
And I would say the easiest way to go find them is to just go to sewforhome.com, and in the search box, and that's in the top of every single page, just type in Sashiko. And it's just like it sounds, Sashiko. Type in Sashiko, and that'll immediately have a little drop down, and you'll see both of the projects. So you can click through and find them. But this was our first case. It's like a little zippered case. And this one is it's all straight stitching. So it's all about the straight stitching on all of the different panels. And you'll see sometimes it's vertical, sometimes it's horizontal. It's going to either side of the zipper. So that was what we were having fun with, playing with. And that is something that I would really recommend if you get into this, is don't be afraid to just play around and see what is going to work best for you. This was one of our little samples that I kind of pulled out to show you that we do practice what we preach. And so you can see along the top here, this was us playing with the stitch length from the default to the 5 to this was 4.5, which is what we finally landed on, to what we like. And even though all of our stitching was just parallel lines, you can draw out some of the classic designs if you wanted to do it that way. You can also find classic Sashiko designs if you want to do just using the straight stitch. So if you don't have a machine embroidery model yet, notice I say yet because you're going to get one, I'm sure. You can find these designs on the internet. You can download, you can trace them, and you can use your Janome to then do the stitching, but stitch over your drawn lines so that you can mimic some of these patterns. So the key, if you're going to be doing the straight stitching, and I would say start with that, play around with that. Like Michael says, it's something you can use on just about any machine with a triple stitch. That's usually found, and Michael, you can help me out with this, usually in the utility stitches. Some machines, you might find it somewhere else. I think that I was kind of writing down some of these sewing applications.
Yes, exactly. In some of our machines, like in the CM17 here in our sewing applications, we actually have Sashiko as a whole category in itself.
Right.
And we just go select it, and it's got the stitches there. But on this chart, if we can see, this is from my CM17 manual. And let's get over here to these, and I'm backwards now.
I know, it's like
quilting stitches that are basically a triple stitch, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then there'll be like one stitch in between, and then it'll do triple stitch, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or some of them, like here, this quilting stitch number 8, it'll go back and forth maybe 2 or 3 times, and then it'll go back 2 times and then forward. So it'll build up, it'll build up some great dimension by going back and forth on itself. So they are, again, depending on your machine, on the CM17 here, they're in the quilting category. But then again, it also has a specific Sashiko sewing applications. But then again, they're basically triple stitches that'll go back and forth, and then a single stitch. So then
And
they've
you
got,
might, yeah, if you've got like a different model, maybe a little bit earlier
some
model,
great
look in your
dimension.
utility. Yeah, just look in the utility section for a triple stitch.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes I think on some models, they're even called like hand look quilting or something like that. It was kind
Yes,
of
or also
before.
sculpture stitches. Depending on, again,
So
your machine, they may be called different things, but they're very similar to that hand look stitch that we use typically with the monofilament thread in the needle,
right.
because it'll go back and forth on itself a couple of times and pull up that bobbin thread, but then with that invisible thread in between, you don't see that. So the
So yeah,
Sashiko stitches are very similar to that.
and that's really the trick that's happening when you use the machine to do the Sashiko style. So you want to make sure in your bobbin that you're using a very fine thread. We used a 60 weight. I saw in some research that I did, people go all the way up to the 80 weight, but the 60 weight is what the Janome bobbin thread is. So that works great, but you do want a fine thread. Don't use just like the all-purpose thread in your bobbin. Use a fine bobbin thread. And then in the top, like Michael said, use the monofilament. And then in addition, you want a heavier needle. You want like a size 16 needle. And so what is happening in the machine is that heavier needle's making a bigger hole. So it makes that bigger hole, and that's going to allow that bobbin thread. So now the bobbin thread is what's becoming the most prominent part of the stitch. And it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. And then like Michael said, then that monofilament is going to skip over. And I mean, really, you can't see it. It's so you end up with that look of it being just a classic hand running stitch. Now, the other thing, when I talked to my pal Regina, Janome America, she was also saying that, you know, really take a look at the type of bobbin case that you're using. And the fact that Janome offers a variety of bobbin cases, this is a good time to put them to use because it can help with the tension and make sure that everything is working together as it should. So with the straight stitch, they said, she was saying, use that blue dot bobbin case. With the machine embroidery, because you're setting that up just like regular machine embroidery, you're going to use the yellow dot. And then if like you're doing something like this and you've got construction on top of it, then you can change out to your red dot. And it really, I mean, it's a fast change. So don't think like, do something extra. But, you know, sometimes it's just those little things that make the difference. And Janome is offering this variety. This is the perfect time to use it. And so really play around with it. Make sure that you get the look you want, because it isn't necessarily something, whoops. Did we lose you?
Oh, I sure hope not. I can still see you.
Oh, there we are. I don't know. It just disappeared.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yes, I was just going to point out very quickly that on the Janome Life blog, if people are confused by, oh, what do you mean this blue dot and yellow dot and red dot? We've got lots of blogs on the Janome Life blog that explain all about the blue dot bobbin holder being a lower tension, and the traditional embroidery bobbin holder has got a little yellow dot that's got a higher tension to pull those threads down to the bottom. So you can go on the Janome Life blog and read all about the various bobbin holders for more information. But yeah, they really do make a big difference.
They make a difference, and use them. That's what they're for. And test. Like I said, these, you know, we always say that, but we really do it. And we try and figure out what we like best and what color we like best. And this just shows you, I'm going to throw a few of these up. I don't know if they're even pressed as well as they should be, but you know, playing around with, here's some that we did on a really blue indigo, you know, a dark blue indigo with a light. This is actually a pink, not a white. And so you just kind of play around with it until you get a look that you want. And these are all built-in designs. And this is an S9 design. And Michael showed you at the beginning that beautiful one that he did. This is also off the S9.
Ooh, cool. I
And
haven't
you can
switched
kind
that one
of,
out yet. That's
yeah, you
cool.
can kind of play around with different things. This is similar to the one that you have. This is a classic basket weave. This is one, I love this one. It almost has more of a look of, you see that? It's got such a
Ooh.
dense, let's see. I really thought that was fun. And, so again, we were just playing around with it until we got something that we really, really loved. And the other thing that we knew we wanted to do is on our pouch that did feature machine embroidery along with the straight stitch. So just like on the other one, we have the straight stitching that kind of goes around the gusset on either side of the zipper. It's got this cute little tab there on the zipper, but the front and the back are done with the machine's Sashiko style. Love those. And so we knew we wanted to kind of do the most effective way. So we were also kind of playing with which designs can we stitch out within the hoop so they're side by side. This is the one, although it's in yellow, you can see that's the same design. And then we wanted to be able to put a straight stitch in between it. So again, it was a lot of playing around. How can we most efficiently use the hoop so that we can cut our final panels right out of one stitching? So yeah, play around with it because there's so many things that you can do. This one is from the 15,000. And I had to double check all my notes. But yeah, this is one that is in the 15,000. There's 11 Sashiko style designs in that particular machine. And this is called Seven Treasures. That it's a classic traditional Sashiko style. And it is 4 ellipses that are in a circle. So it looks like kind of circles within circles. And this one is said to symbolize endless peace and happiness. So that seemed like a good reason to use it, but do play with it. And again, when you're doing the machine embroidery, you're setting it up just like you would any machine embroidery. Really, the only change that we made, other than changing out our bobbin case to the yellow dot, like we talked about, we used a standard bobbin thread, and we bumped up. So, I would say, I don't know what you think, Michael, I would say most of the time the machine embroidery designs are using a 40 weight. We bumped up in this case to a 30 weight, just to give it just a little more oomph in the design, because you want it to have a little bit of that extra texture.
I think that is great. Our Janome red tip needle, for example, would work beautifully with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think, yes, that would be great. Show off a lot of good dimension. And thread is weird, the higher the number, the thinner the thread, the lower the number, the thicker the thread.
I know. I want my bathroom scale to work like that.
Oh, I know. Always I have got to wait a minute. You got to get your head around that one, but yes.
And the other thing that you might want to think about is that you do want some good stabilization. So don't just throw it on there and think you're good to go. We actually experimented with several different things. We had an actual tearaway, but what we decided to do, so we had a tearaway, but when we put everything together, we only tear away out of the seam allowance. So it left that stabilization on the linen. And then we put a fusible fleece over that to give it, a little bit of extra softness.
Yes. Okay.
So, again, play around with some of the layers of stabilization. Depending on the fabric that you choose, you may need more than you think. But I think what's really lovely about this is that it does have a bit of texture to it. So, let that happen. Let the thread kind of sink into the fabric a little bit. And it's going to make it just that much more beautiful. And, we used it on this case. I mean, you could do anything. You can do coasters, you could do some placemats, you can do garments. This is a pretty standard zippered case. It's got the lovely piping. We show you how to do the zipper and the zipper tag. So like I said, both of those are still available on Sew for Home. So you can certainly go there and find all the steps and a little bit more about the history of Sashiko. But we had a blast playing with it. And I think this was one of the projects that we've spent the most time on to really find out, what is this technique like? Where is it from? What are all the things that you can do with it? So give it a go. Try it with the straight stitching first, maybe stitching in a line, stitching some of the patterns. You could draw your own pattern. It's just really fun to play around with. So International Happy Sewing Month.
Well, yes, and I think it's great that you combine it with your pouch there, that you're doing stitching on the regular side of the machine, regular stitching, but then combining it with the embroidered part, that where you're embroidering, and then you're embroidering your fabric basically, and then you're cutting this out and using this as construction. So you're combining the Sashiko from the embroidery side of the machine, but also from the stitching side of the machine. So it's great when you're incorporating the same thing, two different techniques.
Right. And you're right. It really is like you've created fabric, that you're going to cut all of these pieces from. And okay, you have to tell me, because we forgot about this last time we got together, that is the ginormous hoop, and you have some ginormous stabilizer.
Oh, yes. And I'm glad, again, you mentioned stabilizer. Even again, when we're doing this regular sewing, but this specific or special kind of sewing, like the Sashiko's sewing, that again, we need to support it. All the decorative stitches we do, we need to support it. Certainly for our embroidery, we need to support it. So stabilizer, yes, makes all the difference. And then mainly, yes, I meant to mention this in our last live, and as usual, we get so busy chatting and there's so much to remember. I thought, stabilizer, now that we have this giant hoop, this RE46D 11 inch by 18.1 inch hoop for our CM17, very quickly I then said to Randy, my boss, Randy, we need some bigger stabilizer. The Madeira stabilizer that Janome Canada distributes, is smaller, because it fit into the 550E hoop, the 11 by 14, but now we have 11 by 18. So I said, we need bigger stabilizer. So now from Janome Canada, and therefore from your Janome Canada dealers, you can get, these big,
look at that.
Giant,
that is so great.
Some of them are 20 inches, some are 22 inches, as this is, this one specifically is a tearaway stabilizer, and we've got some that are the fusible iron-on mesh that will stay on, when you're going to do your garments. For example, you're typically not using tearaway for those. You'd leave the stabilizer in. So we've got a fusible mesh and in white, and then also in black. And we've got some various weights of the tearaway, which is really simple, just to, pull and rip away. So we've got various weights of that. So yes, now we've got big stabilizers to fit in our fabulous big hoops as well. So you can double check. Again, Janome Canada is a distributor of Madeira stabilizers, so you can check with your Janome Canada dealers. And especially if you've got a new CM17, again, yeah, you can join your stabilizer, but sometimes you don't want to have that seam, and that just produces some bulk when you're overlapping them. So you might as well get a nice, beautiful, clean slate like this. So
love that.
Thrilled to get that. So yes, thank you for mentioning that.
How long I'm just curious, because we haven't gotten to play in person with the CM17 yet. How long did that take to stitch out the little test that you did of the Sashiko design?
This we've got 1,200 stitches per minute in embroidery mode. So on 400 stitches per minute, which is the slowest it'll go, it was going to be about 32 minutes, or I think 36 minutes, something like that. And I said, Nope, I'm too impatient for that. Crank it up to 1200. It's stitched out in 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. And it
And
looks
there's 4
gorgeous.
color changes. It's perhaps very subtle, but there's 4 color changes here. So then, you know, part of my time was also, you know, changing my thread. But yeah, so it went from 30 something minutes to 10 minutes. So yeah, very beautifully.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I can just see that little bit of a rainbow gradient across that.
Oh, and it's so fun. And, you know, you could elect in your CM17 and all of our Janome embroidery machines where we can actually combine all of our colors together. So we can tell the machine, no, don't stop after each of those color changes.
Right.
I'm going to just stitch it out all one color. And that way it'll just stitch all the way through. So you've got lots of choices there.
Oh, yeah. And that would probably be a more traditional look, but why always be traditional?
Oh, exactly. That, yes. Totally have fun, cut it up, do whatever you want with it. Yeah, it's really amazing.
About the only thing we didn't try, and I don't know, maybe somebody out there has given it a try. We didn't try any metallic. With,
now again, Madeira, now which I've used for like 30 years. Madeira metallics are really my favorite. And there are many metallics out there, but yes, Madeira I've always been sold on. And again, how convenient that now Janome Canada is a distributor of Madeira products. Right. So yes, we do have Madeira thread, and specifically Madeira metallic threads work beautifully. I always like using a thread net with metallic threads. A thread net around it to help produce any, or to help counteract any of that, you know, uncurling and unwrapping that can happen, you know, wrap around the spool pin. And then I like, if we've got a machine like the CM17 with the big telescoping thread math, that gives lots of room for that metallic thread to uncurl. But if we don't have a machine with the built-in, you know, telescoping thread mast, we can buy a separate thread stand that will go on the back of many of our machines, and that'll give us that distance for that metallic thread to uncurl and relax. So by the time it gets to the tension, it's not going to twist and break. So little tips and tricks with metallic threads also can be found on Janome Life blog. But I think the Sashiko,
wouldn't that be gorgeous?
Beautiful. Yeah, that would
be
so elegant.
Gorgeous.
Especially
and like
for your bag. Yeah.
For a bag, or even for like holiday linens, you know, it just becomes like simple and elegant, but just a little tiny bit of bling in there. I love that.
Yes, Sharon is saying for the Sashiko that's built into the 550E, she used some variegated threads or some multicolor threads and added beads. So talk about bling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's especially for a bag, you know, if that's like your little zippy tote bag, you know, handbag, whatever, you know, bead it all you want, but jewel it. I think that's wonderful.
I love it. So there you go. That's your Sashiko 101, and you guys can give it a try. And fabulous. I cannot believe we are out of time again, but let's tell people about the next patch. I have them here in my hot
exactly. Because, oh, yes, I've been busy doing some stitching myself. So, yes.
Good. So if you have been playing along, you remember we already had one. We had the adventure patch, which you can find on the Janome Canada website, but it's sewing month. So we have the next one is up. So this is such a cute one. I love the way those little rays come out. But yeah, so that's there now. I just checked and looked, and it really is.
Oh, yes, our fabulous, I always say our fabulous marketing
guru,
Alan. You know, yes, he's like, okay, what patch is going to be next? And I'm like, well, you know, it is National Sewing Month, so how appropriate. We have a little sewing machine now. Patch,
I love it.
Now, there are full instructions. Again, Alan loads them all onto the website that Liz provides to us. So you can go to the janome.ca site, go to the Inspire tab, go to the Sew for Home tab, and there are all the in previous embroidery collections that Sew for Home has produced for us. But last month's patch, the adventure patch, is there, as well as all the instructions. Every patch is going to be sewn out basically in the same manner. Water soluble stabilizer is the recommended stabilizer to use.
Mhm.
But, you know, again, why do everything by the book necessarily?
You
So
don't have
I decided
to.
for this patch, now again, the fun thing is you download the Jeff file is there on the
Mhm.
Janome site. Download it to your computer, put it on a USB stick, you know, plug it in your machine, boom, stitch it out as many times as you want. It's your design for free.
Yep.
Stitch out all you want. So on this case, though, I thought, oh, I stitched it onto felt, directly onto felt. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to then use this as part of a special project that I'm doing. So I
Ooh.
instead used my felt, and then I do have some of that tearaway stabilizer, because the
Okay.
nice thing is I never waste any stabilizer. So if you have a smaller scrap of stabilizer, you know, great. I just use this tearaway, and then yes, this is going to be a special project, which will be revealed much later.
Ooh.
But yes, as you will see, though, this is the 3.9 by 3.9 hoop of the CM17. So even if you don't have a big fancy CM17,
No.
you can still stitch out these patches. You need basically about a 5.5-inch hoop, and you can
Mhm.
stitch all of the patches out. So it doesn't have to be a CM17. It could totally be a 550E, a Skyline S9, 9850. You know, so
Mhm.
long as your machine has an embroider or a USB port to then import the design,
Right.
you can basically stitch out all of these patches.
I think they'd make such a fun gift. So if you've got a lot of your own
Yes.
sewing friends on your list this holiday season, this would be such a cute little thing to give them. Whether just as a patch and they can decide where they want to put it, or make them a cute little tote bag or something, put that on that so they can
Oh, for
carry all
sure.
their sewing supplies around with them. So, and
Yes.
we
And
have 4, 5, 6, 7. So there'll be another one coming next month.
yes,
I'm
exactly. That
telling
we're
you.
back live again in 3 weeks, or well, in a month, the third
Yeah,
Thursday of the month, and then that
I think
week is
it's,
when Alan puts the patches
yeah,
on the website.
October 20th is
Oh,
when we are
perfect.
back
Yeah,
together again.
for Halloween.
I
But
know.
speaking of
Or
that
witches
giant
house.
hoop, ooh,
Oh, it's upside down.
ooh, this is the big
There we go. Oh, look at that.
RE46D. So, of course, why just stitch out one when using the editing capabilities of your Janome machine? You can copy them, as I did. I
That's
did the
so
four
great.
cornering tool. So just boom, it gets 4 in the corner. This one I decided to blow up. So it's
Mhm.
20% bigger than the other ones. And then I combined it, of course, Celebrate Sewing, with the fonts built in to the machine. So again, you can really have a lot of fun with your patches. Sew it just as a
Look.
patch as intended, but then sure, use it however you wish. So there's so much
Yes.
you can do.
I love that. That's
And
so
again, as
great.
always, even 20% bigger, it's stitched out just as beautifully. And to me, that's always a telltale sign that it's really digitized beautifully, that you can blow it up and manipulate it and edit it, and it still looks as beautiful as the original. And then again, even the back looks pretty good too. So I was saying
That
that's a
is
good
so
sign of good
cute.
embroidery. Now,
What
this
are you
did
going to
not
do with
take
that?
10 minutes, let me tell you. This took way longer than 10 minutes, but it was well worth it. So, yes, what I'm going to do, because again, normally these patches would be on water soluble stabilizer, and then you trim away that stabilizer and then finish
And
the
then pop them
stitching, and
out.
then it's
Yeah.
and then it's like an applique. But this, I decided, oh, I'm going to stitch it right on this felt, and then I'm going to piece this all together, almost like a quilt, basically.
It's so
So then
cute.
they're already pieced in. I don't have to, applique them on later.
So
So
you're
much
gonna
you can do.
you need to frame that and put that up. I love that.
I know, isn't that beautiful? And again, how
It
perfect for
is.
September. So it was perfect timing to receive that design from you all. So thank you all to Sew for Home. And then, yeah, next month we're going to be talking about some more wonderful sewing goodies and tips
Mhm.
and tricks and techniques. But then we'll also reveal patch number 3.
Ooh,
Yes, there's a sneak
this
peek
is
actually on the janome.ca website. I love Alan has it kind of masked out a little bit, so like it's blurred, so you can't really see it all. So I'm
We're
Alan,
not
I love that. It's like
telling.
the anticipation. What is it? But I can't see it. Oh, you just have to wait.
Just have to.
Yeah.
So it's another live in the can. We've done a great job.
Yes,
Thank you
which is fabulous.
everybody
And
for
again,
coming.
will be loaded to the Janome HQ YouTube channel as well for those who don't have Facebook. And then again, this will live as a live in the videos category of Janome Canada Facebook. So for anyone who was not able to see the live today or happened to join in late, you can always go back to review.
Excellent.
Always way to share the Janome love.
And be sure, we've always got fun ideas between the two of us, but if any of you out there have something that you want us to talk about,
oh, absolutely.
We're happy to do that. So send a note to Michael, let him know, and we'll put that on our list of things to chat about next time.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You can write us on our Janome Canada Facebook page or Janome Canada Instagram, Janome HQ Facebook, Janome HQ Instagram, Janome Life blog, Janome HQ YouTube. There, many people have my email address. There's so many ways that, again, we can share that Janome love. So yeah, if there's something you would like specifically, Liz and I to discuss or show, So For Home has got a huge library.
This is true.
Of fabulous, techniques and presser feet tutorials and projects and all of that. If you'd like them to go over anything, Liz, to go over any of that, sure, let us know. We're up for anything.
In the meantime, give yourself a little Sashiko.
And it's beautiful. Yes, thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. As always, Liz Johnson, thank you so much. Thank you for the history lesson of Sashiko.
I know, right? There you go.
Yes, and so appropriate with our parent company of Janome.
That's right. It's so interesting.
So, yes,
all right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend.
Yes, thank you so much. Oh, wonderful. Bye. Yes, Mary Jo says, great lesson. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye-bye.